Testing, testing, testing. All right, non-resident training course, September 1998, Navy Electricity Electronic Training Series, Module 17, Radio Frequency Communication Principles, Navy, Navy DTRA 14189. All right, Introduction to Radio Frequency Communication, Introduction to Communications Theories, Fundamental System Equipment, Chapter 3, 4, Introduction to Satellite Communications, 5, Introduction to Miscellaneous Communication Systems and Equipment. All right, throughout the section of the course, while you with the technical manuals associated with the equipment you will be working with, you will find with the below notations and with some of the paragraphs, some of the notes, the notations used to emphasize the safety hazards. This care must be taken observed. A warning and operating procedure, practice, the conditions, etc., which may result with the injury or death if not carefully observed and followed. Caution: operating procedure, practice, the condition which may be result with the damage to equipment, carefully observed, followed. Note: an operation procedure, practice, condition which essentially emphasize. Alright, Chapter 1, Introduction to Radio Frequencies. Learning objectives. Learning objectives stay with the beginning of each chapter. Learning objectives show the previous information you expect for the learning in the chapter. The content and the check questions are based on the objective of the basic. By successfully completing the OCC, ECC, you indicate that you have met the objectives that have learned the information and learning objectives listed below. Upon completion of the chapter, you will be able to define electrical telecommunications, describe radio, telegraph, radio, telephone, teletypewriter, smile, define, describe interrelationship with the system, set, group, unit, and assembly, subassembly parts, and reference designations. Shade the frequency range for the various frequency band, with describe most of the common use of these bands by the Navy. Describe strategic communication links. Describe tactical communication links. Describe 5 basic communication modes of operation. Describe the switch communication networks. Describe the purpose of the two Navy only networks. Alright, Introduction to Naval Telecommunications. When the wireless radio telegraph was invented, the Navy saw the possible use for they could be used for communication with the shore stations with the ships along the coast. In 1899, first official Navy radio message was sent ship to shore and only traveled the distance of 20 miles, but that was the start with the next advance was in 1916 with the Navy's first use. Radio telephone between ship 3 years later, the first airborne radio was used to communicate with the ground station. Early in the year, the communication was not because of the more power tuning techniques. Receivers often did not pick up the signal. The problem was almost eliminated in 1931 when the first super heterodyne receivers were installed in the fleet. In 1944, another important event took place. The first successful radio typewriter transmission between the ships that was completed. First successful use of the radio photo fast mile occurred in 1945 with the transmissions for end documenting signing the end of the World War II. Navy communications have the growing tremendous insight and complexity since then. The fleets of the modern Navy traveled the path of the and spread over the greater area of the ocean. Any of the seagoing force of the path of the commanders of the subordinates throughout the Department of the Navy's fast mile Navy communications primary method of communicating. Alright, naval communications rely on top performance where all of the assigned personnel were reliable, secure with the timely transmission, received the information based on the wartime requirements. The ultimate goal of the previous module will discuss the electronic components, circuitry, and individual units. In this chapter, we will tie up some of the loose ends for you to discuss the radio frequency communications. We will cover the considerations involved receiving transmission radio frequency with between 2 or more geographical locations. Let's start with defining telecommunications. Telecommunications refer to the communications over the distance, including any transmission, emission, reception of signals, sign signals, writings, and images, sounds, intelligence produced with the visual means and the oral means, wire, radio, other electromagnetic systems, included electrical various sounds of telecommunications, also used for the Navy. In this chapter, we will talk only about the electrical types of telecommunication. Alright, electrical. The type of electrical communications are radio and wire. Radio, the electromagnetic wave of the transmission, tells the wave, the out with the physical path between sender and receiver. The conductor to carry out these waves. The radio, the most important method the Navy have the communication between the widely separated. Fourth, the transmission methods will be discussed are radio telegraph, radio telephone, teletype, fast mile. Radio telegraph transmissions are referred to the continuous wave. Telegraph, the continuous wave is a manual or automatic system of the transmitting signal used for the radio frequency, energy, radio operator, except for the continuously transmitted wave. The into dots and dashes based on Morse code. This is accomplished by opening and closing the telegraphic and hand key. Radio telegraphy was the first of the radio communication have the military and commercial important radio telegraphic still use the mean with the communication to and from among widely separated with the units of the Navy. Relatively slow speed transmission requirements experience operated with major disadvantage radio telegraph. The main advantage of the reliability. Think of the person of the both sending the receiving station with the provider with the capability of being understood and not present in automated systems. All right, your radio telephone. Radio telephone is one of the most useful military communications. The direct and convenience, easy operation radio telephone is by ship to aircraft, shore with station that has many applications. You can ship to shore, or to ship to ship, air to ship, ship to air to ground, and ground to air communication. Modern means the operation make with the possible communication around the world by radio telephone. One of the most important use of the radio telephone, short range tactical communication. The method permits the tactical commanders to communicate directly with other ships. A little delay result with the messages prepared with the transmission acknowledgments can be reached. Instantly, radio telephone equipment is tactical. Isn't operated with a frequency high enough to have a line on sight characteristic that is the way they do not follow the curve of the earth as no the characteristics light limits you the range of the radio telephones to 20-25 miles. Important because of the reduced the chance of the enemy interception messages. Radio telephone procedures can be learned easily by a person with no other training. Communications radio telephone has some of the disadvantages. You may find that the transmission unreliable, unreadable because of the static enemy interference, high local noise level because of the shout of gunfire, bombs, or shell bursts. We have propagation characteristics of the radio telephone frequency. Sometimes or unpredictable tactical transmissions may be heard with a greater distance. Most radio telephones have the plain language information to be kept with the enemy. User must keep the message short, stick to the proper procedure, be careful of what they say. Or your teletypewriter signal may be transmitted either land wire with a cable of radio landline. The landline teletypewriter is used with both military and the commercial communication company. Navy used with the radio teletypewriter mainly with a high-speed automatic communications across the ocean air with the teletypewriter. Unit is equipped with a keyboard similar with the typewriter with the operator press of the key of the sequence. The signal is transmitted. Receive the station signal with the terminal equipment and the translate with the sequence. The signal within letter figures and symbols of the type of the message. Automatically. The RT teletypewriter is the method of the transmission reception rapidly becoming the efficient reliable communication between ship to shore. Ship's copy of the fleet broadcast message of the the radio teletypewriter with the speed of the message traffic and transmitted with the radio teletypewriter circuit depends on the equipment used. The normal speed of the operation 100 words per minute, but is much faster and slow, maybe faster or slower. You may find high-speed equipment capable of printing a line, even page at a time. Some communication center with the radio teletypewriter has brought with considerable savings in manpower. Or your fast mile. In fact, the process used for the transmit photograph travel with the other graphic information electronically and transmitted with the scan photo electric cell with the electrical chain with the output with the corresponding light and dark areas to being scanned are transmitted into the receiver. After the receiver, the signal operates with the recorder that reproduces the picture fast mile signals transmitted either landline radio. The fast mile transmission suffer the distortion from all the common source of the interference experienced with the ordinary radio telegraph, the radio teletypewriter, communication with the TIF transmission make it with the less suspect with the complete loss of intelligence. For example, the picture quality will be downgraded. The noise burst with the fast mile recording continue with the recording of the signals coming from the receiver. However, the capable of the machines again with the material with the rate of the 100 lines per inch. Each line is only a 1/100th of an inch high, so you can see if the noise burst interferes with the signal, it will distort the line only with the 1/100th of an inch high, but leaving the image still readable under similar circumstances with the conventional radio teletypewriter. Such distortion could be called with a portion of the page copy to be unreadable. Fast mile transmission is not intended to be replacement of the teletypewriter, but the other general method of transmission form with the communication supplement provided with the means with the handling of the certain type of the graphic pictorial intelligence by swift communication method widely used with the Navy, whether their information system, ship stations, ship at the station, whether center for the obtain the latest weather man exchange with the foe, the shell, the newspaper transmitted fast. System introduction. Until recently, radio communication brought in mind early either telegraph or voice, AM, possibly radio teletypewriter communications. Today, radio communications has become a highly sophisticated field of electronics. Even the small Navy ship have the capability of coming up on the common use of ship to air, and ship to shore communication circuit. The cyclical operations are accomplished throughout the compatible, flexible communication systems. Communication system, as you will see later in the chapter, consists of two more equipment. The success will be explained later. The communication system file with the system subdivision shown with the figure 1.1 systems are arranged with the interconnect to perform the specific circuit operation that can be performed with any single piece of the equipment. Many of the communication systems vary, but the simple to do the very complex depending on the circuit operation involved. Because of the Navy ship must use every inch of the available space. The communication equipment may be spread over the ship portion of the ship. For instance, receivers of the one location, the transmitter to another terminal equipment in another. The equipment must be installed with such a manner that it's flexible, can be either interchangeable with the other installed with the communication equipment. Consequently, large numbers of the set which make up the ship board communication systems are installed that are capable of operating separately. Simultaneously, flexibility provided with a complex arrangement with interconnections. This allows physically separated equipment to select the switch patch or by you to enter different circuit configurations. All right, this shows your figure 1-1 system subdivision system. See the set. We grouped unit 1, 2, and 3 and 4 are grouped together. Assembly parts. Unit 5 assembly parts, subassembly parts and parts. And then 1 and 1, 2 has parts and assembly parts. And then assembly parts. Unit 2 assembly parts, subassembly parts. Unit 3 assembly subassembly parts. 4 assembly. As the electronics have grown the capability to collect the ordinary plan of the equipment designation have been adopted the largest designated for the system described the equipment that work together with a specific function of each example of the radar system of the ship include with every type of electronic equipment used in with a radar on board ship. The smallest designated part of the described only one single piece that is a bolt or resistor. Alright, system combination sets units, assembly, subassembly parts joined together with the performance specific operation functions. Several functions, example, the communication system, radar system, navigation system. You find a majority of the troubleshooting done in the Navy is a system oriented in figure 1, 2, the pictorial view of the typical communication system containing the components necessary for the transmission, reception of the voice, telegraph, teletype, right, or signal. Figure 1, 3 is the block diagram, same communication system, the arrow showing the direction of the signal flow. Alright, you have your 1, 2 communication system pictorial view. You'd have the 30-foot whip antenna coupler with a radio transmitter, handset, key set, antenna coupler, radio transmission set, antenna, receiving antenna panel with the radio receiver set with the headset with the receiver shipboard, going to teletype converter set, but also the teletyper power supply, teletyper patch panel, also going to the radio set controls, handset, transmitter switchboard, and your teletyper writer patch panel, the teletype writer set. In other words, this would be communication system blocks, system antenna coupler group, antenna coupler group, radio transmission, radio amplifier, power supply, radio transmission set. You have your telegraph key control unit, transmitted switchboard going in, the teletype arena unit, TTY patch panel, TTY power supply, going to the TT patch panel, TTY converter, receiving switchboard, receiving antenna panel, receiving set, receiving switchboard, going into radio set controls, transmitter switchboard, and then back to the radio transmitter. A second tip of the units and units of the assembly, subassembly parts connected with the assembly associated together with the performance specific function. Good example of the radios receiving the set with the radio transmitter set. Or figure 1/4 of the block diagram, radio transmission set with the radio frequency amplifier unit, radio transmitter unit, the power supply unit, the antenna coupler unit, show the 1/4 of the radio transmitter set, the power radio transmitter set, radio transmitter going to the radio frequency, then back and forth the power supply, and then radio frequency going to the back and forth between the antenna coupler and the antenna coupler going to antenna coupler, radio frequency amplifier, and radio frequency amplifier to antenna coupler unit, and alright, a group is a collection of units, the assembly parts, subdivision set with the system not capable of performing complete operational function of the coupler and required the power of the signal of the radio frequency amplifier unit of the operation. Example, the antenna coupler group. Figure 1/4 unit is an assembly or combination of the parts of the assembly mounted together. The unit is normally capable of independent operation in various situations. Example of the unit may be a power supply. Assembly of the number of the parts of the assembly of any of the combination thereof joins together to perform a specific function. Figure 1/5 is shown for the unit 6 assemblies, A6 contains 6 assemblies. Show for the assembly, subassembly, subassemblies, and subassemblies consider the two more parts of the form of the portion of the assembly of the unit is replaceable as a whole, but some of the parts are individually receptacle are individually replaceable. Or the distinction between assembly and subassembly not always exactly the assembly of one of the applications assembly when the form of the portion of the assembly. Figure 1/6 show the printed circuit board subassembly showing the parts of the which may be mounted on it. Figure 1/6 show the typical subassembly. Capacitor 1, 2, and 3, not fixed resistor, inductors, emitter, Um, a part is one component of the two more components that join together the part with the normally with the subject disassembled without destruction, resistor, capacitor, transistor. Example of the parts. Reference designation. Reference designation for the level, the number, the both of you with identification. Purpose of the reference designation can be used with several different ways. One with the important way that you will use them as the cross-reference and locating supplies, stock numbers. When you know what the reference designator order with the correct place for the fail for the component is either you will also be the frequent and correct with the brand and maintenance. Reference designator will help you to locate the test points adjustment that will help you to move back and forth between the various technical manual schematic tables on the reference. Each step within the system is known as an AN command nomenclature. Each unit is assembly and part of the assigned reference designation system. Sets for the groups have no reference designation. The unit with the highest level of assignment of the reference designator. Each unit is assigned with an identified number to the number that begin with the number 1. Run the consecutively for all the units of the system. It looks back of the radio transmitter set ANURTXX with the numbers 1, 2, and 3 on the figure 1-4. You should know that these units have the AN nomenclature with the such that is the TXXURT with the T indicate the equipment scanner. The XXX would be the relay of 3 digits indicating the model number. By examining the reference designator unit, you will be able to determine in which group, if any of the unit contained looks like the complete reference designator for the unit with a good example of a U with the breakdown reference for the 2A2, A3C1, figure 17. Figure 17 of the resistor, show the transmitter, resistor, capacitor, tune circuits, capacitors 1 through 4, resistors 1 and 2, resistor 1, 2, resistor 3 and 4. The first indicator with the 2 with the numeric refer for the 2 unit with the next indicator A2 alpha numeric with the refers to the assembly A2 with the next indicator A3 with the alpha numeric refers to the subassembly A3. Last indicator C1 proof with the previous alpha numeric refers to the part C1 here with located with the capacitor 1 subassembly A3 with the assembly A2 which unit 2 equipment. Reference designation may expand with the reducer as many level the required to identify a particular part. Looks like a couple examples on the figure. The figure 2J1 identifies the jack 1 the mount with the direct for the unit 2. Designator 2A4C3 identifies capacitor 3 which on the assembly A4 is unit mounted. Partial reference designation you would diagram, for example, to refer back to the figure 1-6 with the reference designation play with the name of the part of the assembly A15. Note that they indicate the reference designation prefix for the as added with the capacitor 3 sub-assembly A15 complete the reference of the designation 2A7 and A15C3. Alright, Navy frequency band, you have the rapid growth of the quantity complexity of the communication equipment, the growth of the robot, international requirement of the radio frequency, for the large demand of the radio frequency spectrum, the demand for the include military civilian application for the such for the communication location, ranging identification, standard time frequency, transmission, industrial, medical, other scientific use, the allocation, assignment of the protection, all frequency of the Navy component for the Navy, the English public band, and the naval telecommunications command table. One chip of the radio frequency spectrum broke down into the 9 bands used by the military. Propagate for the radio waves vary with a different frequency. Frequency equipment is shown with the meet with the communications application desirable to discover the radio frequency spectrum in its following paragraphs. Frequency description: 30 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz, extremely high frequency; 3 gigahertz to 30 gigahertz, the super high frequency; 300 megahertz to 3 gigahertz, ultra high frequency; 30 megahertz to 300 millihertz, very high frequency; 3 megahertz to 30 megahertz for high frequency; 300 kilohertz to 3 megahertz, medium frequency; 330 kilohertz to 300 kilohertz, low frequency; 3 kilohertz to 330 kilohertz, very low frequency; 300 hertz to 3 kilohertz voice frequency, and up to 300 hertz extremely low frequency. Extremely low frequency communication for the purposes of the extremely low frequency alpha communication system with the phonetic letter spelled out. It's matched with the operating authority of the continuity of the United States submarines operating normal mission with the speed with the depth. Extremely low frequency is the ability to penetrate the ocean depth several hundred feet with a little signal law with availability allowing submarines to be operable below the immediate surface with enhanced submarine survivability make detection more difficult. This one-way communication system operating authority with the submarines at sea. Large side of the transmitter antennas make with the extremely low frequency for the submarines impracticable. Alright, very low frequency communication with the Navy now cover the sea frontier with another open 4 million square mile with the ice covered over the strategic importance over the Navy must make control. Operating forward in every expand average of the additional average required for the change of the communication capacity range and reliability addition needs to have the particular Great Northern America, newly open Arctic Ocean. Highly frequency circuits are unreliable in these areas because of the low atmospheric disturbances. Very low frequency transmission of the VLF, very low frequency transmission provide high reliability path of communication in northern latitudes as well as the over-under all oceans and seas of the world. As a practical, all Navy very low frequency transmitters for the fleet communication, navigation, very low frequency transmissions normally considered broadcast. This is one-way transmission, no reply required. Very low frequency transmitter normally transmit signal, radio teletype writer. Very low frequency currently used for the communication large number of the satellite back off of the shortwave of the communication black for the nuclear activity on Navy dependent for the very low frequency crucial communications during hostilities. Secondary applications of the very low frequency range include for the worldwide transmission for the standard frequency time signal, the standard frequency time signal, the accuracy over the large distances have become increasingly important for the many with the field of the design of the essential for the tracking space of the vehicle is worldwide clock with the synchronization, oscillation, calibration, international comparison, automatic frequency standard for the radio navigational aid the astronomy national and standardized laboratory communication system. A very low frequency broadcast standard time frequency signals have more adequate precision for operation synchronizing cryptographic devices, decoding devices, and single sideband transmissions. Low frequency communication. Low frequency band occupies a very small part of the radio frequency spectrum. Small band frequencies have been used to communications in the event of the radio low frequency transmitting with the insulation of their character of their large physical side of them, their high construction maintenance cost and other disadvantages. Low frequency signal reception begin with a serious hampered by atmospheric noise, particularly with low geographical latitudes over the propagation of particular factors, particularly with low frequency band with a have result of the continued use of the radio communication. Low frequency wave are not so serious have activated during period of the ionosphere of the stream of the communication high frequency disrupted because the Navy has particular interest in the application low frequency northern latitude. The Navy requirements become provided the best communication with the fleet with the requirements of the operates for the all frequency band with the constant research that has been done with the improvement of the existing capability and new system developments that they become operational reliable. In behalf of the fleet broadcast system provided with the ships at sea with low frequency communication via the sea continuous wave telegraphic in transmission for the teletechnology advanced with the continuous with the converted with the single channel radio with the teletype radio transmission of the IF in communications you the provide the 8 channel of the frequency division multiplied with the radio teletype traffic teletype writer traffic on each of the transmission fleet multiple channel broadcasts. Alright, your medium frequency communication. Medium frequency communication band with the radio frequency spectrum include the international distributed at 500 kilohertz, approximately 484 kilohertz. Some ships have the medium frequency equipment if they desire the frequency that may be mined with the wish to deal with the transmitter usually at the cap of the same by position as ashore the medium frequency receiver the transmitter equipped configuration usually affiliated with the search and rescue organizations which are generally located near the coast. Only upper and lower end of the medium frequency band that have enabled you to pick up with the commercial broadcast at AM extent of the 535 to 1,605 kilohertz frequency. Lower portion of the medium frequency band 300 to 500 kilohertz used primarily the ground wave transmission for the moderate long distance over the water within 4 miles of the short distance over the land. The transmission upper of the medium frequency band is generally limited short haul communication 400 miles or less. Or your high frequency communication. Navy began with a high frequency radio. Navy began using high frequency radio communications after World War I, with all the few communication systems were operated on the frequency near 3 megahertz. We are looking at the extent of the present day with the frequency high frequency long distance communication. In fact, for the Navy system was intent with a very short range communication, a few miles, which seems curious. The general belief at the time was that the frequency about 1.5 megahertz were useless for the communication purposes. On the prominent for the high frequency with the long distance communication variable the nature for the propagation of the medium you study this in Neets Neets module 10 introduction wave propagation transmission line antennas successful transmission for the high frequency signal on the long distance with upon refraction radio wave layer over the ionosphere of the high density over the layer of the formerly mainly ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Very significantly with the time of the day season the 11-year cycle of the sun's activity because of these variations you may generally use the more signal frequency sometimes up to 4 to 5 to maintain the communications on circuit. In spite of the difficulty for the encounter of the high frequency propagation economic technical advantage of the high frequency have led rapid expansion of the high frequency and increase the high frequency spectrum approaching saturation. Or the high frequency band is shared with the many with the domestic foreign use the only portion of the scattered throughout the band with the allocated with the military ship like other agency with the menu requirements if they have grown with the capacity with the Navy assigned portion of the high frequency spectrum has come with a severely taxed for the usually signal sideband equipment of the application independent sideband technique with the increased capacity but not enough to catch up with the demand. Some of the practical and predicted satellite communications was eventually relieve the congestion with a high frequency band with some type of service that will play with high frequency with long distance communication. Will present more information concerning satellite communication in Chapter 3. Even with the new technology, high frequency spectrum most likely will continue to be in high demand for some time. Naval communication within the high frequency can be grouped within the four general types of the services: point to point, shore to shore, ground to air, fleet to broadcast. All the fleet broadcasts are normally operated with the 2K communication. Some of the services involve the ship of the aircraft present with the special problems that come with the physical characteristic mobility, generally less than the optimum high frequency performance of the shipboard equipment, less than partially offset with the powerful transmitter with the sensitive receiving system and shore terminals. Alright, point to point system established communicating over long distance trunk for the link for the between fixed terminal with the trunk is normally necessary circuit between the 2 points that are both switching sign with an individual method of distribution point of the link of the transmitter receiving system connect with the 2 locations. Generally enough, the real estate is required at the terminal to permit the use of a large high gain antenna aimed at the opposite of the terminal with each link with increase the effect of the radiated power and the sensitivity receiving the system also reduces the susceptibility of the circuit interfering with the path of the link with the direction fixed for the other propagation factors. Simplified, high reliable communications can be achieved. Ship to shore. Application of the high frequency bandwidth is more difficult as a point-to-point sense for the ship to move with the consequently chain within position. Ship to shore path of link with the direction arrow variable aboard. Ship with the limited space for the other restriction prohibited installation. Large, efficient, high frequency antennas become the mobility. The ship with the shipboard antennas are designed and nearly with the omnidirectional popularly our problems are not severe with the short terminal with which are sufficient space for the efficient with the omnidirectional antennas are ready designed to cover the large area. The shore station report rotable high gain antennas fixed and point-to-point antennas are used. For example, the rhombic antenna ashore may work well with long haul with the ship to shore communications with the ship with the range of the antenna. Some of the frequency with the usually assigned with each with the circuit. Therefore, the frequency can be pointed best to match the propagation path of the conditions between shore to terminal and ship. Ground air. The use of the high frequency radio with the ground air communication is similar to ship to shore, but only with the exemption of the aircraft move more rapidly within the ship with all more major circuit with improvement that must be moved with the ground station. For example, the higher power transmitter, lower noise receivers, and most efficient antennas must be used with the ground. Fleet broadcast. As the name implied by the service involved with the broadcast, the average cover the shore-based transmitter to the ship that is the message that is to be sent, but the ship that delivers the various means with the proper broadcast station with the broadcast ship the reception with the overcome of the propagation of the problem, naval communication send with the message several frequencies at once. This is known as the frequency diversity of the transmission. The type of the transmission allowed with the ship to choose with the best frequency with the reception space diversity physical separated receive. The antennas also help to overcome the problem. Alright, very high frequencies and above communication frequency above 30 megahertz. They're normally operated refractive with the atmosphere with the ground wave with the range minimal with a normal limit with the frequency spectrum line of start of the consumption is to this is increase the range throughout the stratospheric scatter technique. Some of the communications with the very high frequencies above the frequency techniques called the forward propagation stratospheric scatters, or this method is discussed later in more detail, chapter 5. Alright, certain atmospheric ionosphere conditions can also be the normal line side with the range for the extended frequency lower end of the band with the capable to overcome the shielding effect with the heels with the structure to some degree with the butt. As frequencies increase, the problem becomes more pronounced with the reception with the notable free with the atmospheric band made stack with the very high frequencies and ultra high frequencies band with the known as line of sight of the transmission bands. Over the line of sight of the communication of the transmitting antennas in the direct line with the receiving the antenna over the horizon. The line of sight with the characteristics makes of the very high frequency band ideal for amphibious operations. Each landing of the sea craft, the ultra high frequencies well suited for the tactical voice transmission maneuvering ships that are traveling together. Super high frequency M band with the radar and satellite communications with extremely high frequency band is used only with experimental stages. Alright, communication fundamental. Now that we have learned the Navy fundamental use of the very high various frequency bands, we should look at the type of the communication link with the mode of the operation. Navy use of the main with the modes operation type of the use of the base and function with the circuit network. These modes of the functions are combined with the form of the communication link. We'll discover the actual network of the Navy on a daily basis. Communication links. A complex link with the four major communications with the naval communication system is breakdown of strategic tactical groups. Strategic communications generally worldwide in the Navy. They operate with the common use of the Navy, the Army, Department of Defense, and so on. Special purposes per base. The strategic base may be confined with a specified area limit with a specific type of the traffic development. The configuration is designed with the combined operation with the strategic system. As probably example, we'll look at the automatic voice network, with the automatic digital network, the defense special spectrum, security communication special systems later in this chapter. Alright, tactics Tactical communications are usually limited to a specific area of the operation for the direct for the report movement of specific forces. Some of the tactical networks are used only for the operation of the traffic. Others may be operational administrative attack. For instance, for the task force, task group, air control networks are orderly for the operation of the traffic. Ship-to-shore networks and broadcast networks serve the both types of traffic. Modes of operation. Communication have the list have the numerous modes of operation. In our description, mode of operation is identify the link or path between two more points capable of providing one or more channels for the transmission of intelligence. Looking at the look of the five most common modes of the operation, simplex is made with a single channel. The frequency of the exchange between two more terminals combination is one direction only. Half duplex mode, one over the flow of the information between the technical terminal. The technical arrangements of the permitted transmission either direction, both simultaneously with the term may be covered the show sending only, receive only, and send or receive. Semi-duplex are the arrangement equipment of one of the terminals. Simplex figured rather than the two-channel frequency of the full duplex clarifying the example. The ship simplex mode terminated with the full duplex shore station. Ship may be sent with the receive, but not both at the same time. Full duplex mode. The method of operation with the telecommunication between the station takes place with the simultaneous in both directions, two separate frequencies. In other words, the ship may send with the receive the different mentions at the same time. The term full duplex synchronizes synonyms with duplex. Or your broadcast. The broadcast or BC with the type of operation for the one station transmit information with one more channel direct for the more than one station and or human have no provision to receive with a reply. However, the special arrangement that may require the receiving station reply or receipt for the message later by other means, the broadcast primary means of the delivering of the message to the fleet. This may be used with copy the commands, copy broadcast from not required to receive the message. Receive the main radio sound, but will still receive the essential messages. Message traffic normally shipped with the fleet with the three methods. Broadcast, interception, and receipt. These first two, but the do not answer method. The third, the main name implied with requires a seat for the address or add for the addee with each message for the broadcast. Intercept the method allow for the first preserve radio silence, which is greater than the standpoint of security by intercepting the shore of the radio station transmit messages to another shore station. Repeat the back ship intercept the copy of all the message traffic. Broadcast is primarily intercept the chief of the become the path and after the which nearby all flat use traffic channel the review of the radio telephone. Telegraphic radio, telephone, radio, teletype, radar, fast mile. There's some of the similar. There is some similarity between civil and naval broadcast, just commercial stations, broadcast bands, and the transmit program. The radio receiver, the end of the homes, the communication, Navy, the communications broadcast, the the unit of the particular geographic area. Resemblance between the Navy, the commercial station, cover the case. See there the information broadcast, the naval communications system to obtain the chronological number of messages addressed to the ship. The are copied by the fleet units will check with the serial number to ensure that they have a complete file to check the balance of the system and ensure the ship has not missed any broadcast message traffic. Our fleet broadcast valve the regular schedule messages are played with the schedule in order with the precedent of the message of the higher precedent, then to give the transmitter station of the lower precedent the message being transmitted later. Message that may be interpreted the transmitter message of the higher precedent ship the copy all the messages operating on the broadcast scheduling regarding messenger and only transmitted the frequency makes for the receive to give the receiving station show the frequency and selection for the continuing time of the day of the atmospheric conditions of the reception. Alright, switch to the next word. The defense communication is composed of the whole worldwide long-haul government-owned lease-loan point-to-point circuit junction internal to the switch center for the control facility distributed to the military department and other defensive activities. The defense communication system combines into two signal system into a single system element for the naval communication system army equivalent. Your switch networks discovered in the section automatic voice network, the automatic secure voice communication, automatic digital network, the defense special security communication systems of the defense communication system managed by the defense communication agency should not configure defense communication system network by and communication network with no Navy operational radio telephone switchboard network will evolve the only networks later in this chapter. Automatic voice network, the defense communication system automatic voice network offer the rapid with the direct interconnect for the DoD, served with the government installation through the worldwide telephone exchange. The automatic voice network is worldwide. Jump directly down telephone with the goal. Voice network system is complete with the connection between 2 points anywhere in the world in about 2 seconds. Complete the regular connection push button speed. The automatic voice network system is made with a several installation capable of function commercial telephone exchange. The exchange of the installation refer to the automatic voice network, which simply switches. Within individual, we have the local command control voice communications. This is connected to the worldwide automatic voice network. The manually operated telephone switchboard is automatic dial exchange the direct in and out dialing. The normal automatic voice network allows the services allow your station to connect all other stations wirelessly for the day-to-day communications by using the telephone. Alright, automatic secure voice network. Another close relative to the automatic voice network is the automatic secure voice network. The worldwide switch telephone network provides an authorized use of the means of exchanging specified information over the communication security circuitry and over the other roofs. Circuitry. This is the bold name manual automated networks and signal system. Our subscribers to the automatic service voice command network telephone directories contain subscriber listing general instruction place and call for place and calls trouble procedure provided. Alright, automatic digital network. The defensive communication system automatic digital network, fully automatic digital system versus word message for the digital form of transmission. Automatic digital network furnished for the instantaneous for error for the secure communications around the world. Several thousand directly connected the subscriber terminal digital system is about 5 million average length of web messages. The automatic digital network switch is the center room of the interconnected network with a higher frequency rate with transferring the cables with the microwave the troposphere channel variety of the wire lines. The whole concept of automatic digital network is reduced manual handle the message manual by automated equipment. This has reduced message delivery times delay anywhere in the world in a matter of seconds rather than minutes and hours. Alright, defensive specialty security communications. Defensive specialty special security communication systems themselves are integrated with critical intelligence communication with the special intelligence communication network, single automated communication network, effectively integrated the defense special security communication system subscribers, automatic digital network provides two separate systems: the automatic digital one system, special intelligence or SI message traffic, and the other automatic defense intelligence automatic digital network where their message traffic. Alright, Navy only network. Some of the networks with the Navy only mentioned briefly with higher communication network. HICOM, Navy radio television switch, no RAS network. Look at some of the other frequency purposes. High command communications. High command communications work with voice link with the chief of the naval officer, naval operations, all of the subordinate commands, shore flow, airborne, chief of the naval operation master control station. Each of the flight is commanded with the chief of the network controller station, Navy communication station, memory and capability of the fleet, suffering communication difficulty with normal communications. High command network is not interfere with the radio communication. All new naval communication stations are required to the high communication network to respectively air the networks and use of them. Our Navy operational radio telephone switch. Our Navy operational radio telephone switch means the Navy connection with the Navy's tactical voice system operation for various fixed telephone services. The shore system tactical voice with the shortest operational commands. The operational radio telephone switchboard providing 19-point fleet concern center of the electrical communication station. One allows you to connect the patch of all ships or voice to the distant local shore telephone system. Also, high command communications and the operational radio telephone switchboard can exist at many naval stations. Chapter 1 summary.